In the soft embrace of twilight, where the last whisper of daylight meets the gentle darkness of night, there exists a moment of profound stillness. It is here, in this sacred threshold between waking and sleeping, that ancient wisdom finds its voice, gentle as dewdrops on morning lotus petals, patient as the mountain that watches over countless seasons. Tonight, dear friend, we gather in this quiet sanctuary of sound and silence, where the teachings of the Buddha drift like incense through the chambers of the heart. Before we begin this gentle journey into the realm of healing and self-discovery, I invite you, if these words bring comfort to your weary spirit, to offer your gentle support by subscribing to our channel, blessing this video with a soft like, and perhaps sharing in the comments below where in this beautiful world you find yourself listening tonight. Your presence, like a single candle in a monastery window, brings light to our shared journey. Imagine, if you will, the ancient pathways of the East, where monks in saffron robes walk slowly through bamboo groves at dawn. The air is thick with mist and possibility, each footstep a prayer, each breath a teaching. Cherry blossoms drift on invisible currents, landing softly on weathered stone, while somewhere in the distance, a temple bell tolls once its sound, rippling through the stillness, like truth through consciousness. This is where we begin our exploration tonight, in the understanding that healing is not something we seek from others, but something we discover within ourselves, like finding a pearl hidden in the depths of our own being. The Buddha himself taught that we are our own refuge, our own salvation, our own path to freedom. And so, with gentle hearts and quiet minds, we step together onto this moonlit path of self-discovery, in the hushed cathedral of a moonless night, where stars seem to lean closer to whisper their ancient secrets. We find ourselves drawn to a question that has echoed through the corridors of time, like the sound of temple bells carried on wind. What is the nature of healing when we stand alone beneath the vast expanse of sky? Picture, if you will, a solitary figure seated beneath the Bodhi tree, not the Buddha himself, but you, yes, you wrapped in the soft silence of deep night. The leaves above rustle with ancient wisdom, and in their gentle murmur, you begin to hear something profound, the sound of your own heart learning to trust itself. For what is healing, truly, but the gradual awakening to the understanding that within you lies everything you have ever sought? The Zen masters speak of a riddle, a cone that dances at the edge of understanding. What is the sound of one hand? Clapping? But tonight, we pose a gentler mystery. What is the feeling of a heart healing itself? Close your eyes and listen not with your ears, but with something deeper. Can you hear it? That soft, almost imperceptible sound of inner wounds knitting themselves together, like spider silk weaving itself in darkness? In the traditional gardens of Kyoto, there exists a practice called Mano no Aware, the gentle sadness of things passing away, the bittersweet beauty of impermanence. The cherry blossoms bloom for only a brief moment, then drift away on spring breezes, and in their falling, they teach us something profound about letting go. Perhaps our pain, too, is like these blossoms, beautiful in its own way, temporary, and carrying within it the seeds of wisdom. Consider the mountain stream that flows over ancient rocks, never stopping, never struggling against the obstacles in its path. It simply flows around them, over them, through them, carving new channels with infinite patience. The water doesn't ask the rocks to move. It doesn't wait for permission to find its way. It simply follows its nature, trusting in the journey itself. Are you not like this stream? Do you not carry within yourself the same patient, persistent power to find your way? There is a story told in Zen circles of a young monk who approached his master with great distress. "Master," he said, "I have been meditating for months, but I still feel broken inside. When will someone heal me?" The old master smiled and pointed to a crack in the temple wall where a small flower had grown through the stone. "Tell me," he said softly, Who taught that flower to bloom? In the soft darkness of this night, as your breathing deepens and your muscles begin to release the day's tensions, allow yourself to wonder, what if healing is not something that happens to you, but something that you allow to happen through you? What if the very act of seeking healing from others is like a bird asking the sky for permission to fly, when flight is already written in its wings? The ancient Buddhist texts speak of Buddha nature, the inherent perfection and wholeness that exists within every being. It is not something we must earn or achieve. It is something we must simply remember. Like a jewel covered in dust, our essential nature shines beneath the accumulated sorrows of life, waiting patiently for us to brush away the debris of old, pain, and see clearly, once again dot in the soft amber glow of monastery lanterns, where shadows dance gently against ancient walls worn smooth by countless prayers. We encounter the profound teachings of the Buddha not as distant philosophy, but as living wisdom that breathes within our very souls. Here, in this sacred space between sleeping and waking, we discover that healing is not a destination, but a homecoming. The Buddha, in his infinite compassion, spoke these words that drift to us now like petals on evening air. Be a lamp unto yourself. Be your own refuge. Seek for no other. All things must pass. Strive on with diligence. How tenderly these words settle upon the heart, like a gentle hand placed upon a fevered brow. They remind us that within each of us burns a light that no storm can extinguish, no darkness can diminish. In the ancient Pali scriptures, there is a teaching called the Kalama Sutta, where the Buddha counsels us not to believe something simply because others say it is so, but to test it against the wisdom of our own experience. Come and see, he whispered across the centuries. Do not take my word, discover for yourself. What profound trust this places in our own capacity for understanding, our own ability to discern truth from illusion, healing from harm. Imagine, if you will, the historical Buddha sitting beneath the Bodhi tree in those final moments before his great awakening. He was alone profoundly, completely alone. No teacher stood beside him, no guide held his hand. In that ultimate moment of transformation, he had only himself, his breath, and his willingness to look deeply into the nature of suffering and its end. And what did he discover? That liberation comes not from changing our circumstances, but from changing our relationship to our circumstances. The teaching of anicca, impermanence, flows through Buddhist wisdom like a river through a valley, shaping everything it touches. Your pain is impermanent. Your sadness will pass. Your loneliness, like morning mist, will eventually be burned away by the sun of understanding. This is not mere consolation. This is the very structure of reality itself. Nothing lasts forever, not even our suffering. Consider the lotus flower, that most sacred symbol in Buddhist tradition. It begins its life in the murky depths of pond water, surrounded by darkness and decay. Yet it does not struggle against its environment, or wish it were planted elsewhere. Instead, it uses the very mud that surrounds it as nourishment, slowly growing upward toward the light. When it finally breaks the surface, it blooms in perfect purity, its petals unstained by the darkness from which it emerged. Are you not like this lotus? Is your pain not the very soil from which your wisdom grows? The Four Noble Truths speak to us with gentle authority across the millennia. The first truth acknowledges that suffering exists, not as punishment, but as part of the human condition. How compassionate this recognition is. How validating. You are not broken because you suffer. You are human. The second truth teaches that our suffering often comes from our grasping, our desperate clinging to things that must inevitably change. The third truth offers hope. Suffering can end. And the fourth truth provides the map, the Eightfold Path, a gentle way of living that leads to freedom. In the Dhammapada, those luminous verses that shine like stars in the darkness of confusion, we find these words: All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts and is made up of our thoughts. If a person speaks or acts with a pure mind, happiness follows as surely as his own shadow. Here, in this ancient wisdom, we discover the profound truth that we are the architects of our own healing, the gardeners of our own peace. The teaching of metta, loving kindness, begins not with love for others, but with love for ourselves. In the traditional meditation, we first offer these gentle words to ourselves. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be at peace. May I be free from suffering. How revolutionary this is in a world that teaches us to seek love everywhere, but within our own hearts. The Buddha understood that we cannot give what we do not possess, cannot offer healing to others from an empty well. There is a beautiful practice called Tonglen in Tibetan Buddhism, where we breathe in suffering and breathe out relief. But before we extend this practice to others, we learn to breathe in our own pain with acceptance and breathe out compassion for ourselves. Each breath becomes a small act of self-healing, a gentle acknowledgement that we have the capacity to transform our own suffering into wisdom. The concept of emptiness or sunyata is often misunderstood as a cold, nihilistic teaching, but in its true essence, it is profoundly liberating. It suggests that nothing, including our pain, our trauma, our deepest wounds, has permanent, solid existence. They are like clouds in the sky of consciousness, appearing and disappearing, changing form, ultimately returning to the vast openness from which they arose. This emptiness is not empty of compassion. It is full of infinite possibility for healing and transformation. In the gentle mists of ancient memory, where time moves slowly like honey poured from golden spoons, there lived a monk whose name has been whispered through generations like a prayer carried on mountain wind. Master Linji walked the earth in the Tang dynasty, his robes the color of autumn leaves, his presence as calming as deep forest pools reflecting starlight. One morning, as cherry blossoms drifted like snow through the monastery courtyard, a young woman arrived at the temple gates. Her eyes held the weight of unspoken sorrows, her shoulders curved inward as if protecting a wounded heart. She had traveled many days and nights, seeking the famous master who is said to heal broken spirits with nothing more than a few gentle words. Master, she whispered, falling to her knees before the old monk, I have come so far to find you. My heart is shattered into 1,000 pieces. My beloved has left me. My family has turned away, and I have lost faith in everything I once held dear. Please, I beg you, use your wisdom to heal me. Make me whole again. Master Linji looked upon her with eyes that had witnessed countless sunrises and sunsets, that had seen the wheel of suffering turn through seasons of joy and sorrow. Slowly, he reached into his simple bag and withdrew a small, ordinary clay cup cracked down one side, its glaze worn thin by years of use. Tell me, dear child, he said, his voice soft as silk brushing against stone. What do you see in this cup? The woman looked at the simple vessel, confused by his question. I see ... a broken cup, master, damaged and imperfect. The old monk smiled, expression so gentle it seemed to emanate light. And what use does this broken cup serve? None, she replied, frustration creeping into her voice. A broken cup cannot hold water. It is useless, worthless. Master Linji nodded slowly, then carried the cup to a small fountain in the center of the courtyard. To her amazement, he held the cup beneath the flowing water, and it filled perfectly, crack allowing excess water to flow out, preventing overflow, creating a perpetual cycle of renewal. This cup, he said, returning to sit beside her, has been broken for many years. Yet every morning, I use it for my tea. The crack does not make it useless. It makes it perfect for its purpose. It cannot hold more than it needs, and it releases what is excessive. It has found peace in its brokenness. The woman's eyes filled with tears as understanding began to dawn like sunrise over mountain peaks. The master continued, his words falling. Like gentle rain on thirsty earth, you have come seeking healing from me, as if I possessed some magic that you do not. But tell me, dear one, who has carried you all these miles? Who has endured your pain with such faithfulness? Who has loved you enough to seek healing, even when hope seemed lost? I have, she whispered. Yes, Master Linji nodded. You have been your own faithful companion through every dark night. You have been your own source of strength, your own reason for continuing. The healing you seek from me has been happening within you with every step you took to get here. He placed the cup gently in her hands. This cup teaches us that brokenness is not the end of usefulness. It is often the beginning of a deeper purpose. Your heart has been cracked open. Yes, but look, is it not now capable of holding more compassion? Can it not now pour out understanding for others who suffer as you have suffered? The woman held the cup to her chest, feeling its rough edges, its imperfect wholeness. In that moment, she realized that her journey had not been about finding someone to fix her, but about discovering that she had never been truly broken at all, only cracked, open enough to let in more light. Master Linji stood and began to walk away, then paused and turned back. The cup does not struggle against its crack. It does not spend its days wishing it were different. It simply holds water when water is needed and releases it when release is needed. Can you not do the same with your pain? Years later, that woman became known throughout the region as a great healer herself. She would tell people that she learned her art not from any teacher, but from a cracked cup that taught her the difference between being broken and being open, between seeking healing and recognizing that healing had been happening all along. In the quiet moments before sleep found her each night, she would hold that simple clay cup and remember, we are not broken things needing to be fixed, but perfect vessels learning to hold and release life's joys and sorrows with equal grace. The story spread through the valleys and mountains, carried by pilgrims and merchants, each telling adding new details like layers of meaning. Some said the cup still sits on a shelf in that monastery, still bearing its perfect crack. Others say that anyone who truly understands the story carries that cup within their own heart. But Master Linji, when asked about the truth of the tale, in his later years, would only smile and point to his chest. The cup, he would say, is always here. The water is always flowing. The only question is whether we have learned to hold and release with equal love. In the soft sanctuary of this deepening night, where the boundary between consciousness and dreams grows thin as morning mist, we turn our gentle attention inward, not as an escape from the world, but as a homecoming to the vast, quiet space that has always existed within you, patient and unchanging as the depths of an ancient well. Breathe now, dear friend, and feel how your breath requires no instruction, no guidance from any teacher or healer. It flows in and out with the same natural rhythm that moves tides and seasons, that opens flowers and turns planets in their endless dance. Your body knows how to breathe, how to heal, how to find its way back to balance. It has been doing so since your very first moment of life, and it continues now in the darkness, tending to you with infinite devotion. With each inhalation, imagine drawing in not just air, but the soft silver light of understanding. This light has no source outside yourself. It arises from that place within you that has never been wounded, never been lost, never been less than perfectly whole. The Zen masters call this your original face, the self that existed before birth, that will remain after death, that watches serenely as all experiences arise and pass away like clouds across an endless sky. Feel your awareness settling deeper. Now, like silt slowly settling in still water until the surface becomes mirror clear. In this clarity, you begin to notice something profound. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the vast, unchanging awareness in which emotions appear and dissolve like waves on an ocean that remains forever calm in its depths. The Buddha spoke of this deeper self as anatman, no self, not because you don't exist, but because what you truly are is so much vaster than the small, worried self that carries pain from day to day. You are like space itself. Thoughts and feelings move through you, but they cannot stain you any more than clouds can stain the sky. The sky remains pure and open, whether filled with storms or sunshine, and so do you. Imagine now that you are walking slowly down a spiral staircase made of moonbeams and mist, each step taking you deeper into the temple of your own being. With each gentle step, you leave behind another layer of who you thought you were supposed to be, another expectation placed upon you by a world that never truly knew your deepest nature. Step by step, breath by breath, you descend into the sacred chamber of your own art. Here, in this innermost sanctuary, burns a flame that has never flickered, never dimmed, never needed fuel from any external source. This is the light of your Buddha nature, your Christ consciousness, your divine spark, whatever name your tradition gives to that essential goodness that no trauma can touch, no betrayal can diminish, no loss can extinguish. It burns steadily, quietly, asking nothing, offering everything, waiting patiently for you to remember that it has always been here. The ancient Upanishads whisper to us across millennia, Tat Tham Asi, thou art that. You are that which you seek. The healing you long for, the peace you pursue, the love you crave, all of it already exists within the infinite expanse of your own being. You have been like someone dying of thirst while standing in a crystal clear river, forgetting to simply bend down and drink as your breathing slows and deepens. Notice how each exhalation releases not just carbon dioxide, but also old hurts, ancient resentments, worn-out stories about who you are and what you deserve. With each out-breath, let go of the need to be different than you are in this moment. Let go of the struggle to become someone worthy of love. You already are love itself, temporarily disguised as a human being who has forgotten their true nature. The mystic Rumi wrote, "You are not just the drop in the ocean, but the entire ocean in each drop." Feel this truth now as your consciousness expands beyond the boundaries of your skin, beyond the walls of this room, beyond the limits of time itself. You are not a small, separate thing seeking healing from a vast, indifferent universe. You are the universe itself, experiencing what it feels like to heal through the instrument of your awareness in this deep inner space. Pain transforms naturally into compassion, fear dissolves into understanding, and loneliness reveals itself as the profound solitude of the divine recognizing itself in countless forms. You begin to see that every person who has ever hurt you is also seeking this same inner sanctuary, this same peace that passes understanding. They, too, were drops of the ocean who had forgotten their true nature. The Vietnamese Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh taught about interbeing, the recognition that we are not separate beings but waves in the same ocean of consciousness. When you heal yourself, you heal all beings. When you find peace within yourself, you add that peace to the collective healing of the world. Your inner work is not selfish. It is the most generous gift you can offer to existence itself. Feel now how naturally your body knows to relax when your mind stops struggling. Your shoulders soften, your jaw unclenches, your forehead smooths. This is not something you must learn to do. It is something you must simply stop preventing. Healing happens naturally when we remove the obstacles we place in its path. Like water flowing downhill, consciousness naturally moves toward wholeness when we stop damming the river with our resistance in the gentle darkness behind your closed eyes. you might begin to sense a vast presence not outside yourself, but as yourself. This presence has no opinions about your past mistakes, no judgments about your current struggles, no demands for your future improvement. It simply is, and in its being, you find the deepest rest you have ever known. This is the healer you have been seeking, not another person with wisdom to impart, but your own true nature finally recognized and welcomed home. In the velvet depths of this peaceful night, where secrets whisper themselves to those who know how to listen with their hearts, we discover some of the most beautiful and mysterious teachings that have been passed down through generations of seekers, like precious gems hidden in silk pouches, waiting for the right moment to catch the light. There is a story, rarely told, of the Buddha's smile. It is said that on the day of his great enlightenment, as he sat beneath the Bodhi tree with the morning star shining overhead, he did not speak for 7 weeks. He simply sat in perfect stillness, and those who came upon him noticed something extraordinary. He was smiling, not the fleeting smile of happiness, but the eternal smile of someone who had discovered the most delightful secret, that what he had been seeking with such intensity was what he had been all along. This story teaches you something profound about the nature of our own healing journey. We search so desperately for teachers, therapists, gurus, and guides to show us the way to wholeness, when the greatest discovery is often this: the seeker and the sought are one. You are not broken waiting to be fixed. You are whole temporarily, forgetting your wholeness. The Buddha's smile was not one of achievement, but of recognition, like suddenly remembering a dream you thought you had lost. In the Zen tradition, there exists a practice so simple it seems almost absurd: just sitting, or shikantaza. Students often come to masters asking for complex techniques, elaborate rituals, profound teachings, and the master responds, just sit. Do nothing else. Don't even try to meditate. Just sit. And in this radical simplicity, something extraordinary happens. When we stop trying to heal ourselves, healing happens naturally. When we stop struggling to become peaceful, peace reveals itself as our original nature. A great Zen master Dogen taught about Shoshin, beginner's mind. He said, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the expert's mind, there are few. What if your very unfamiliarity with healing yourself is actually your greatest advantage? What if not knowing how to fix yourself is the doorway to discovering that you were never truly broken? The expert mind thinks it knows what healing should look like, but the beginner's mind is open to the miracle of healing happening in ways we never expected. There is a hidden teaching in the Buddha's first sermon, delivered to 5 ascetics in the deer park at Sarnath. Before he spoke of the 4 noble truths or the Eightfold Path, he said something curious. I have found the deathless. I will teach you the deathless. What is this deathless thing? It is not your body, which changes and ages. It is not your thoughts, which arise and pass away. It is not your emotions, which flow like weather through the sky of consciousness. The deathless is your essential awareness itself, that which has remained unchanged from childhood to now, that which observes all change, but is itself unchanging. In the deepest teachings of Tibetan Buddhism, there is a practice called Rigpa, resting in pure awareness. It requires no technique, no effort, no improvement. You simply rest in the awareness that is always already present. Right now, as you listen to these words, there is an awareness that perceives them. This awareness is not tired, not wounded, not in need of healing. It is pristine, alert, peacefully present. The great secret is that this awareness is not separate from who you are. It is who you are. The Sufi poet Hafez wrote, God has a special love affair going on with your suffering. This might sound cruel at first, but hidden within it is a profound truth. What if your pain is not evidence of your unworthiness, but of your sensitivity? What if your capacity to suffer deeply is matched by an equal capacity to love deeply, to heal deeply, to awaken deeply? The heart that can break completely is the same heart that can heal completely. In the Japanese aesthetic tradition, there is a concept called wabi-sabi, finding beauty in imperfection, impermanence, and incompleteness. There is also kintsugi, the art of repairing broken pottery with gold, making the repaired piece more beautiful than it was before it was broken. What if this is true of human hearts as well? What if the places where you have been cracked open become the very places where light enters and love flows out? The Diamond Sutra, one of the most profound Buddhist texts, contains this paradoxical statement. All conditioned phenomena are like dreams, illusions, bubbles, shadows, like dew or like lightning. Contemplate them thus. This includes our suffering, our trauma, our deepest wounds. They are real in experience, but empty of permanent substance. They are like dreams from which we are always capable of awakening, not by denying them, but by recognizing their ephemeral nature and our own eternal nature. There is a practice among certain Buddhist monks called charnel ground meditation, where they contemplate the impermanence of the body by meditating in cemeteries. But the hidden teaching is not morbid, it is liberating. When we truly understand that this body, this personality, this collection of memories we call self is temporary, we discover something deathless that watches it all with perfect equanimity. This deathless awareness is incapable of being wounded, because it has no substance that can be damaged. The ancient Chinese sage Lao Tzu wrote in the Tao Te Ching, "The sage does not attempt anything very big, and thus achieves greatness." What if healing yourself is not the enormous, complex undertaking you thought it was? What if it is as simple as a flower turning towards sunlight, natural, effortless, inevitable, once the conditions are right? The greatest healers often do very little, but they create space for healing to happen naturally. In the deepest tantric teachings, there is a recognition that what we call negative emotions are actually forms of wisdom energy that have become frozen or misdirected. Anger is wisdom energy that knows what is not in alignment. Sadness is wisdom energy that recognizes impermanence. Fear is wisdom energy that perceives potential harm. When we stop fighting these energies and learn to work with them skillfully, they transform naturally into their awakened qualities. Anger becomes clarity. Sadness becomes compassion. Fear becomes alertness. Perhaps the most hidden truth of all is this: you have never actually needed healing because you have never actually been broken. What you have needed is remembering, recognizing, returning to the wholeness that is your birthright and your deepest nature. Every teacher, every technique, every practice is simply pointing you back to what you have always been, but temporarily forgot. And in this recognition, healing happens not as something you do, but as something you are. In the soft cathedral of this deepening night, where silence has become our most trusted teacher and darkness our most gentle companion, we come to rest. Beside an ancient river that has been flowing through the landscape of human consciousness since the first heart learned to beat, since the first breath learned to whisper its secrets to the wind. This river has many names in many traditions: the Ganges of the spirit, the Jordan of the soul, the sacred stream that carries away all that no longer serves us. But tonight, in the intimate sanctuary of your own awareness, this river flows directly through the center of your being, and its waters whisper the most profound teaching of all, the art of letting go. Picture yourself now sitting on the moss-covered bank of this inner river, your feet perhaps dangling in waters that are neither hot nor cold, but perfectly attuned to the temperature of peace itself. The current moves steadily, but without hurry, carrying fallen leaves and flower petals, old messages in bottles, memories wrapped in silk, all flowing downstream toward an ocean of forgiveness so vast it has no opposite shore. The Buddha, in his infinite wisdom, taught that attachment is the root of suffering, but what he meant was not that we should love less, but that we should hold our love with open hands, like cupping water from a spring. When we grasp too tightly, the water spills through our fingers and is lost. When we hold gently, the water remains, clear and nourishing, for as long as it chooses to stay. Feel now, in the gentle rhythm of your breathing, how each exhalation is a small act of letting go. You do not cling to the breath you have just released. You trust that another will follow. You do not store up air in your lungs for fear of scarcity. You participate in the endless circulation of life itself. What if you could breathe your sorrows the same way, taking them in with compassion, then releasing them with trust, knowing that each letting go makes space for something new to enter? The river beside you carries stories. Oh, so many stories. You might see floating past the argument you had with a friend 10 years ago, still wrapped in the righteousness you felt then, still carrying the sting of words that can never be taken back. You might notice the betrayal that taught you to build, walls around your heart, drifting by like a message in a bottle you no longer need to read. And there, floating serenely with the current, is the version of yourself you thought you had to be to earn love, dissolving gracefully in waters that love you exactly as you are. Letting go is not the same as giving up. The warrior who lays down her sword is not surrendering to the enemy. She is recognizing that the war was always an illusion, that the enemy was always a mirror, that peace was always the destination toward which every battle was unconsciously aimed. When you let go of the need to defend yourself against life, you discover that life was never actually attacking you. It was only offering you opportunities to remember your own invincibility. In the Japanese tradition of tea ceremony, there is a moment called Ichigo Ichi, one time, one meeting. Each gathering is understood to be completely unique, never to be repeated in exactly the same way again. The participants hold this moment with exquisite tenderness precisely because they know it is passing. What if you could hold your pain this way? Not as a permanent resident in the house of your heart, but as a temporary guest, worthy of respect and attention, but not entitled to stay forever. The great Sufi mystic Rumi wrote, "Let yourself be, silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love. It will not lead you astray." But what pulls us toward healing is often our willingness to let go of what we thought healing should look like. We imagine it as a dramatic transformation, a sudden awakening, a moment when all pain ends forever. But true healing is often as quiet as snow falling, as gentle as morning arriving. So gradually, we don't notice the exact moment when night becomes day. Watch now as the river carries away the image you held of who you would be when you were finally healed. See it floating peacefully downstream, that perfect version of yourself who never feels sad, never doubts, never struggles with the ordinary difficulties of human life. Wave goodbye to this impossible standard with compassion, the way you might wave to a child who is leaving home for the first time, knowing that letting go is how love continues to flow. The ancient Taoists understood that water is the softest substance on earth, yet it can carve through the hardest stone, not through force or violence, but through persistence, flexibility, and the willingness to flow around obstacles rather than fighting them. Your tears, too, are like this water-soft, yielding, yet capable of wearing away the hardest deposits of grief that have accumulated in the caverns of your heart. As you sit beside this inner river, you might begin to notice that you are not separate from the water. You are the water. Your consciousness flows like this stream, carrying experiences downstream, constantly moving, constantly changing, yet always essentially itself. The pain you experienced yesterday has already flowed past. The joy you felt this morning has joined the great circulation. Even the peace you feel right now is not something to grasp, but something to participate in, to be. There is a practice in certain Buddhist traditions called sky light meditation, where practitioners learn to rest in awareness. that is as vast and open as the sky itself. Clouds of thought and emotion arise and pass away, but the sky remains unchanged, unaffected, perfectly accommodating to whatever appears within it. Your deepest nature is like this sky, spacious enough to hold all experiences without being diminished by any of them. The Vietnamese Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh taught about letting go with both hands. Not the letting go of aversion, where we push away what we don't want, and not the letting go of attachment, where we cling to what we do want, but the letting go of perfect equanimity, where we hold everything lightly, with equal love and equal willingness to release. This is the letting go that heals, because it recognizes that holding and releasing are both forms of love. Feel the river flowing through you now, carrying away the need to figure everything out, the need to have all the answers, the need to be anywhere other than where you are in this perfect moment. Let it carry away the stories about why you're not healing fast enough, why you should be different, why life should be easier. These stories have served their purpose. They brought you to this riverbank, to this moment of recognition. Now they can flow onward, blessed and released in the gentle sound of water moving over stones. You might hear the lullaby that existence has been singing to you since birth. Let go, beloved. Let go and trust. Let go and float. You were made for this current, this flow, this endless journey from heart to heart, from moment to moment, from love back to love again. In the sacred hush of deepest night, where even the wind holds its breath in reverence, we enter the most intimate sanctuary of all, the temple of solitude that exists not in any external place, but in the quiet cathedral of your own company. Here, in this holy space where you meet yourself without masks or pretenses, without the need to explain or justify or perform, the deepest healing begins to unfold like lotus petals opening to the first light of dawn. There is a profound difference between loneliness and solitude, dear friend, though they may wear similar faces in the darkness. Loneliness is the ache of feeling separated from love, disconnected from understanding, cast adrift in an ocean of indifferent strangers. But solitude is the recognition that you are never truly alone, because you carry within yourself the most faithful companion you will ever know, your own awakened heart. The hermit traditions of many cultures understood this sacred truth. In the deserts of Egypt, Christian mystics would retreat to caves carved from living rock, spending years in silence with only their own souls for company. In the mountains of Tibet, yogis would wall themselves into meditation cells for months at a time, emerging transformed by the alchemy of deep inner communion. In the forests of ancient India, sages would sit beneath trees for decades, discovering in their own awareness treasures more precious than all the gems of earthly kingdoms. These beings were not escaping from love. They were diving so deeply into love that they discovered its source within themselves. They learned what you, too, are learning in the gentle solitude of this night, that the love you seek from others is the very love you are made of, temporarily forgetting its own nature, like the sun searching for light. Breathe now into the spaciousness of being alone with yourself, and truly notice, the quality of presence that fills this solitude. Is it not kind? Is it not patient? Has it not stayed with you through every triumph and disaster, every moment of joy and sorrow, never judging, never abandoning, never asking you to be different than you are? This presence is not empty loneliness. It is fullness itself, the pregnant silence from which all healing arises. In Japanese aesthetics, there is a concept called ma, the pregnant pause, the meaningful emptiness, the space between notes that gives music its rhythm and meaning. Without these spaces, music would be only noise. Without the solitude that allows you to hear your own inner symphony, life becomes only the chaos of external demands and other people's expectations. In the temple of solitude, you remember the music that is uniquely yours. Asterisk. The 13th century mystic Meister Eckhart wrote, "God's greatest gift is that he leaves us alone." This may seem like strange theology, but hidden within it is a profound recognition. The divine so trusts your inherent wholeness that it does not interfere with your journey of self-discovery. You are given the extraordinary freedom to heal yourself, to find your own way home to love, to discover in your own experience what countless teachers can only point toward with words. Feel now how your body relaxes differently when you are alone with yourself in loving acceptance than when you are alone in self-criticism or fear. Notice how your shoulders soften when you stop performing for an imaginary audience, how your breathing deepens when you no longer need to justify your right to exist exactly as you are. This relaxation is not laziness. It is the natural settling of a being who has come home to itself. In the Zen tradition, there is a practice called just sitting, or shikantaza, sitting with no goal, no technique, no attempt to achieve any particular state. You simply sit with yourself as you are, offering the gift of your complete, unconditional presence to whatever arises in the space of awareness. This is perhaps the most profound healing practice of all, learning to be with yourself without trying to fix, change, or improve anything. The solitude of this night temple is not the solitude of isolation, but the solitude of intimate communion with the deepest truth of who you are. It is here, in this sacred aloneness, that you discover you are not merely a collection of wounds and memories and learned behaviors, but something far more mysterious and beautiful, pure awareness itself, temporarily playing at being human, temporarily forgetting its own infinite nature. Consider the tree that grows alone on a mountainside, its roots reaching deep into the earth, its branches stretching wide to embrace the sky. It does not long for the forest. It has become its own ecosystem, home to countless birds and insects, shelter from storms, a beacon of life in the vast landscape. You too, in your solitude, become a refuge not only for yourself, but for all beings who will encounter the peace you have cultivated in the secret chamber of your own heart. The great Christian mystic Thomas Merton understood this when he wrote, "It is in deep solitude that I find the gentleness with which I can truly love my brothers." The love that emerges from genuine solitude is not needy or grasping. It is freely given because it flows from an inexhaustible source. When you learn to heal yourself in the temple of your own solitude, you become a healing presence in the world without effort or intention, simply by virtue of having made peace with your own existence. In this temple, there are no distractions from the essential work of coming to know yourself as you truly are. No television chatters in the background. No phone buzzes with urgent demands. No other person's emotions require your management or response. There is only you and the vast, loving awareness that you are, learning to recognize each other as old friends who have been temporarily estranged, but never truly separated. The mystics speak of a state called Sahaja Samadhi, natural enlightenment. The recognition that awakening is not something exotic or difficult to attain, but simply our natural state when we stop interfering with what we already are. In the temple of solitude, this recognition becomes possible because there are no external references to convince you that you are anything other than perfect, whole, and complete exactly as you are. Listen now to the silence that surrounds these words, the silence that exists between your thoughts, the silence that watches all experience arise and pass away without being touched by any of it. This silence is not empty. It is pregnant with infinite possibility, rich with the presence of your own Buddha nature, warm with the love that is your essence. In this silence, healing happens not as something you do, but as something you allow, as something you are. The temple of solitude teaches us that we are never truly alone because aloneness itself is an illusion. You are alone with the same consciousness that beats your heart, that grows your hair, that heals your cuts, that dreams your dreams. You are alone with the intelligence that moves planets and seasons, that knows precisely how to transform seed into flower, caterpillar into butterfly, sorrow into wisdom. This is not loneliness. This is the most intimate communion possible in the soft velvet darkness of this sacred night. Where time moves like honey through the chambers of eternity, we find ourselves walking slowly through a garden unlike any other, a garden where every flower blooms and fades in perfect timing, where every leaf falls exactly when it is meant to fall, where the very transience of all things reveals itself as the deepest teaching about the nature of healing and the art of letting life flow through us like water through cupped hands. This is the garden of impermanence, tended not by any earthly gardener, but by the gentle wisdom of existence itself. Here, cherry blossoms bloom for only a few precious days before scattering like snow on spring winds, teaching us that beauty does not diminish when it passes. It becomes more beautiful, precisely because it cannot last forever. Here, the morning. Glory opens its face to the dawn and closes it to the dusk, showing us that there is profound dignity in natural cycles, in knowing when to open and when to close, when to reach toward light and when to rest in darkness. As you walk these moonlit paths, breathing in the fragrance of jasmine and night-blooming cereus, you begin to understand something that transforms the very nature of suffering. Everything that causes you pain is also subject to the same gentle law of impermanence. Your heartbreak will pass like winter passes into spring. Your anxiety will dissolve like morning mist when touched by the warmth of awakening. Your loneliness will transform like a caterpillar transforms in the darkness of its cocoon, emerging as something capable of flight. The Buddha, in his infinite compassion, made impermanence the cornerstone of his teaching, not to make us sad, but to make us free. When we truly understand that nothing lasts forever, neither pleasure nor pain, neither success nor failure, neither youth nor age, we stop grasping so desperately at the good times and stop resisting so violently the difficult ones. We learn to dance with life rather than wrestling with it, to surf the waves of experience rather than being crushed by them. In a corner of this garden grows an ancient oak tree, its trunk scarred by lightning, its branches twisted by storms, some of its limbs broken and fallen. Yet it stands in magnificent dignity, its remaining branches reaching toward stars with undiminished grace. The tree does not mourn its broken limbs or wish it could return to its younger, more symmetrical form. It has learned the secret that the garden whispers to all who have ears to hear. Perfection is not about remaining unchanged, but about flowing gracefully with whatever changes come. You too are like this oak tree, dear friend. The storms you have weathered, the losses you have endured, the parts of yourself that have been broken or fallen away, these do not diminish your essential magnificence. They are part of your unique beauty, part of the story that only you can tell, part of the wisdom that only you can offer to the world. Your scars are not flaws in the marble of your being. They are the very places where light enters, where compassion flows out, where others can find refuge in the knowledge that survival is possible. Near the center of the garden, there is a fountain that never stops flowing, yet the water is never the same. Each drop that falls from the carved stone lips is unique, unrepeatable, precious in its singularity. This fountain teaches us about the nature of consciousness itself, always flowing, always changing, yet always essentially itself. Your thoughts flow through your mind like this water, and learning to heal yourself is learning to watch this flow without damming it up with resistance or polluting it with judgment. The Japanese have a phrase, mano no aware, which speaks of the bittersweet awareness of the impermanence of all things. It is not a sad philosophy, but a tender one, the recognition that beauty and sorrow are intimately connected, that the very fact that something cannot last forever is what makes it infinitely precious. Your pain, too, carries this quality of mano no aware. It is real, It matters. It deserves your compassion. And it will pass like everything else in this ever-changing garden of existence. As you sit beside the fountain, you might notice that your breath has this same quality of impermanence. Each inhalation arises, exists for a moment, then dissolves into exhalation. Each exhalation empties you completely, and dissolves into the pause before the next inhalation. You do not cling to any particular breath or try to make it last longer than its natural span. You trust the process completely, knowing that your breath will continue without your interference, following rhythms older than civilization, wiser than any technique. What if you could trust your healing process with the same natural confidence? What if, instead of trying to force yourself to feel better, you could simply breathe into whatever you are experiencing right now, knowing that it too will pass at its own perfect timing? What if healing is not about eliminating impermanence, but about learning to dance with it so gracefully that change becomes a friend rather than an enemy? In the deepest teachings of Buddhism, impermanence is revealed to be not just a characteristic of existence, but existence itself. Nothing has permanent, solid, independent existence. Everything arises in dependence upon causes and conditions, exists for a time, then dissolves back into the creative potential from which it emerged. This includes your suffering, your trauma, your deepest wounds. They are real in experience, but empty of the solid, permanent existence that your fearful mind attributes to them. The garden teaches us that death and birth are not opposites, but partners in an eternal dance. Every ending is also a beginning. Every loss creates space for new growth. Every dissolution returns energy to the vast recycling system of consciousness. When you let go of who you used to be, you make room for who you are becoming. When you release old pain, you create space for new joy. When you stop clinging to past versions of yourself, you discover the freedom to be authentically present in this moment. There is a practice in certain Zen traditions called die before you die, learning to let go so completely that you discover what in you cannot die. It is not the body, which ages and changes. It is not the personality, which grows and evolves. It is not even the mind, which flows like a river from moment to moment. What cannot die is the awareness that watches all these changes, the consciousness that remains constant like space itself, while all things arise and pass away within it. As you walk deeper into this garden of impermanence, you begin to notice that you are not afraid of change anymore. You have learned to trust the seasons of your soul, to honor both the times of blooming and the times of falling dormant, to see that your healing follows the same natural rhythms that govern all of life. Spring will come again after winter. Dawn will break again after the longest night. Joy will bloom again in the heart that has learned to make peace with sorrow. The garden's final teaching is perhaps its most profound. Impermanence is not the enemy of love, but love's greatest teacher. Because nothing lasts forever, every moment becomes precious. Because every experience is unrepeatable, each one deserves your full presence. Because you will not be here forever in this particular form, your very existence becomes a gift to the universe, temporary, unique, and infinitely valuable precisely because it cannot be possessed or preserved, only experienced and treasured, and allowed to flow onward into the great mystery from which it came out in the gentle luminescence of starlight, filtering through ancient temple windows, where shadows dance with the patience of centuries and silence holds the wisdom of ages. We come upon the most sacred mirror in all of existence, not one made of silver and glass, but the living mirror of compassion that reflects back to us our own tender, struggling, magnificent humanity. This mirror does not show us the face we present to the world, painted with smiles we do not feel or confidence we do not possess. Instead, it reveals the face beneath the face, the one that holds every sorrow with dignity, every fear with courage, every moment of confusion with the quiet grace of someone who is learning to be human in a world that often feels too sharp, too bright, too overwhelming for hearts as sensitive as ours. Look now into this mirror of compassion and see reflected there not your flaws or failures, but your extraordinary willingness to feel deeply in a world that often teaches us to numb ourselves. See your tender heart that continues to hope despite repeated disappointments, continues to trust despite betrayals, continues to love despite the inevitable losses that love always carries within it, like seeds carry the promise of both blooming and withering. The Buddha taught that compassion begins with ourselves, not as selfishness, but as the foundation from which genuine love for others can grow. You cannot give water from an empty well, cannot offer healing from a heart that has shown no mercy to itself. The mirror of compassion reflects back this truth. The kindness you show to yourself is the same kindness that will naturally flow toward all beings. Because in the deepest sense, there are no separate beings, only one heart learning to love itself through countless forms. In the Tibetan tradition, there is a meditation called Tonglen, taking and giving, where practitioners breathe in suffering and breathe out relief. But before extending this practice to others, they learn to breathe in their own pain with complete acceptance, can breathe out compassion for themselves. Each breath becomes a small act of self-healing, a gentle recognition that suffering is not a sign of weakness, but of sensitivity. Not evidence of failure, but proof of how much we care. As you breathe now in the soft darkness, imagine breathing in your own loneliness, your own confusion, your own deep tiredness from trying so hard to figure everything out. Breathe it in completely, without resistance, the way you might breathe in the scent of rain on summer earth, as something natural, something that belongs to the landscape of human experience. And as you breathe out, offer yourself the same tenderness you would offer to a beloved friend who came to you with identical struggles. The mirror of compassion shows us something revolutionary. Our imperfections are not obstacles to healing, but gateways to it. The places where we feel most broken are often the places where we develop the greatest capacity for understanding others who break in similar ways. Your depression teaches you to recognize the subtle signs of sadness in others and to offer the gentle presence that you know can be a lifeline. Your anxiety gives you profound empathy for all the ways fear can masquerade as anger, criticism, or withdrawal. In the gentle reflection of this sacred mirror, you begin to see that what you have called your damage is actually your education. In compassion, every wound has been a curriculum in understanding how pain works, how healing happens, how the heart can break open rather than simply breaking apart. You have become a specialist in the very sufferings you have endured, qualified by your own experience to offer the kind of understanding that can only come from having walked similar paths through similar valleys. The Dalai Lama, himself no stranger to loss and exile, teaches that if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. But the compassion that heals is not the kind that says, I should be different than I am. It is the compassion that says, I see how hard you are trying, dear heart. I see how much you have endured. I see your goodness even when you cannot see it yourself. This mirror reflects back to all the small acts of courage that you have dismissed as ordinary. Getting out of bed on days when darkness felt too heavy to lift, continuing to show up for life, even when life seemed to show little kindness. In return, choosing again and again to remain open to love, despite how many times love has left you feeling raw and vulnerable. These are not small things. They are the daily heroics of a sensitive soul learning to inhabit a difficult world with grace. In the Islamic mystical tradition, there is a beautiful saying, Allah does not look at your forms and possessions, but He looks at your hearts and your deeds. The mirror of compassion reflects this divine gaze. It sees past your mistakes and failures to the intention beneath. past your confusion to the love that motivates even your most misguided actions, past your human limitations to the divine spark that animates your every breath. You begin to understand, as you gaze into this mirror, that self-compassion is not self-indulgence, but self-respect. It is not making excuses for harmful behavior, but creating the emotional safety necessary for genuine transformation to occur. You cannot bully yourself into healing any more than you can torture a flower into blooming. Healing requires the same conditions that all growth requires: safety, nourishment, patience, and trust in the natural unfolding of life itself. The reflection shows you something else. You have been your own most faithful companion through every dark night of the soul. When everyone else was absent, you were there. When everyone else gave up on you, you continued breathing, continued hoping, continued taking one more step forward, even when you couldn't see the path. This constancy, this loyal presence you have been to yourself, is itself a form of love so deep and reliable that most people never recognize it. In Zen Buddhism, there is a teaching about just as you are, not as you should be, or as you could be if you tried harder, but exactly as you are in this moment, tired, confused, imperfect, struggling, and still somehow beautiful in your very willingness to keep trying. The mirror of compassion reflects this just as you are quality back to you with infinite tenderness. The way morning light reveals the beauty in a garden that includes both flowers and weeds, both blooming and decay. As you sit with your reflection in this sacred mirror, you might notice that your face begins to soften, your shoulders begin to drop, your breath begins to deepen. This is what happens when we finally stop trying to be different and start learning to be present to what is. This relaxation is not giving up, it is giving in to the deeper intelligence that knows how to heal, that has been patiently waiting for us to stop interfering with its work. The mirror whispers the secret that all genuine spiritual teachers eventually discover. You cannot hate yourself into wholeness, cannot criticize yourself into peace, cannot shame yourself into love. Healing happens in the presence of unconditional acceptance, in the recognition that you are already worthy of love, not because of what you have achieved or overcome, but because love is what you are made of, temporarily forgetting its own nature. In the hushed sanctuary of this deepest night, where the veil between worlds grows thin as spider silk and wisdom whispers itself through the chambers of a quieting heart, we discover one of the most profound mysteries of human existence: how the threads of our deepest wounds, when touched by the gentle alchemy of time and acceptance, weave themselves into a tapestry of wisdom so beautiful that we would not trade it for any life untouched by suffering. Imagine, if you will, an ancient weaver sitting at her loom in the soft glow of oil lamps, her fingers moving with the practiced grace of one who has learned to see beauty not just in the golden threads, but in the dark ones as well. She knows that without the shadows, the light threads would have no definition, no depth, no story to tell. She weaves with equal reverence the silk threads of joy and the wool threads of sorrow, understanding that the strongest cloth comes from the marriage of many different fibers. You, dear friend, are both the weaver and the tapestry, both the artist, and the work of art being created through the patient intersection of experience and awareness. Every thread of pain that has been woven into the fabric of your being has contributed to a pattern of understanding that is uniquely yours, irreplaceable in its particular beauty, impossible to replicate in any other life. The great Persian poet Rumi understood this mystery when he wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." Not metaphorically, but literally, the places where life has cracked you open become the very places where wisdom flows in, where compassion pools like sacred water, where understanding grows like flowers in the rich soil of acknowledged suffering. Your wounds are not evidence of your brokenness. They are proof of your capacity to let life teach you its deepest lessons. Consider the ancient Japanese art of kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with veins of gold, creating something more beautiful than the original unbroken piece. The cracks are not hidden, but highlighted, transformed into rivers of precious metal that catch light and draw the eye to contemplate the beauty that can emerge from apparent destruction. Your heart, too, has been practicing this art, learning to fill its cracks with the gold of hard-won wisdom, the silver of deep compassion, the platinum of genuine understanding. In the weaving of wounds into wisdom, we discover that healing is not about returning to who we were before we were hurt. That person no longer exists, and trying to resurrect them is like trying to stuff a butterfly back into its cocoon. Healing is about becoming who we are meant to be after we have been broken open, after we have been taught by pain, after we have learned to hold both joy and sorrow with equal tenderness in the expansive embrace of a heart that has grown large, enough to contain all of human experience. The Buddhist teaching of dukkha acknowledges that suffering is woven into the very fabric of existence, not as punishment or mistake, but as teacher and transformer. The first arrow of pain is often unavoidable. It is the second arrow of our resistance to pain that causes the deeper suffering. But when we learn to receive even the second arrow with compassion, when we stop fighting our own reactions to pain, something extraordinary happens. Suffering transmutes itself into understanding. Resistance transforms into acceptance. And the very force that seemed to be destroying us reveals itself as the energy of our awakening. Picture now a master calligrapher who has spent decades learning to write with perfect beauty. Each stroke of her brush carries within it all the failed attempts, all the imperfect letters, all the frustration and persistence that led to this moment of effortless grace. The wisdom in her hand contains the memory of every mistake transformed now into skill. You, too, are becoming such a master not of brush and ink, but of the art of being human, of the practice of loving yourself through every season of experience. There is a story told in certain mystical traditions of a seeker who spent years searching for the perfect teacher, the ultimate teaching, the final answer that would end all seeking. Finally, exhausted by the search, she sat down by the roadside and wept. In that moment of complete surrender, she heard a voice, not from outside, but from within, saying, "Every step of your search has been the teaching. Every disappointment has been the teacher. Every moment of feeling lost has been the path home. The seeking itself had been the finding." Disguised as its opposite. Your journey through pain toward healing follows this same mysterious logic. Every therapy that didn't quite work contributed something essential to your understanding of what you needed. Every relationship that ended taught you something crucial about love. Every moment when you felt most broken was also a moment when you were most open to transformation. Nothing has been wasted. Nothing has been meaningless. Nothing has been separate from the great work of becoming who you are meant to be. In the ancient craft of silk making, the silkworm must surrender its entire existence to create the cocoon. That becomes the raw material for beauty. It enters the darkness of its own making, dissolves into something unrecognizable that emerges transformed. But here is the miracle. The silk that is harvested from that cocoon retains within its fibers the memory of transformation. When woven into cloth, it carries forever the story of death and rebirth, of surrender and emergence. You are like this. Silk, every fiber of your being now carries the wisdom of your own transformations. The wounds that once felt like endings reveal themselves to have been beginnings. The experiences that seemed to diminish you are actually expanding you. The pain that felt like it was destroying your capacity for joy was actually clearing away everything false so that authentic joy could finally find room to breathe. In the alchemy of time and tender attention, lead truly does transform into gold, not through magical thinking, but through the patient recognition of what was always already precious. temporarily hidden beneath the dross of unconscious suffering. As you rest now in the deep peace of this night, feeling your breath move in and out like the shuttle on the loom of existence, you can sense the tapestry of your life taking shape not as a tragedy punctuated by moments of relief, but as a love story between you and life itself, a romance between consciousness and experience, a sacred marriage between what breaks you open and what fills you with light. The weaving continues even now, even in sleep, even in the spaces between breaths. Every moment of awareness adds another thread. Every act of self-compassion strengthens the fabric. Every choice to remain open rather than closed creates new patterns of possibility. You are not just healing, you are creating, not just recovering, but discovering, not just surviving, but becoming something the world has never seen before. The unique expression of love. That can only emerge through the particular combination of threads that is your unrepeatable life. In the profound stillness of this sacred hour, where night has reached its deepest point and the world sleeps in the arms of infinite darkness, we arrive at the shore of the most mysterious and healing truth of all, the recognition that beneath every wave of pain, beneath every storm of confusion, beneath every tide of sorrow, there lies an ocean of original goodness, so vast and pure that no amount of surface turbulence can disturb its essential nature. This ocean has been called by many names across many traditions: Buddha nature in Buddhism, the Christ consciousness; in Christianity, the Atman; in Hinduism, the soul; in Sufism. But tonight, in the intimate sanctuary of your own deepening awareness, we will simply call it what it is: the irreducible goodness that is your most essential nature, the love that you are, when all the stories about who you should be, dissolved in the salt water of complete acceptance. Picture yourself now standing at the edge of this infinite ocean in the soft light of stars that reflect on its surface like scattered diamonds. The waves that lap at your feet carry memories, some pleasant, some painful. But as you wade deeper into these sacred waters, you begin to understand that you are not separate from this ocean. You are not a drop that somehow fell into it, or a visitor standing on its shore. You are the ocean itself, temporarily dreaming that you are only a wave. The mystics throughout history have tried to convey this revolutionary recognition that what we seek outside ourselves, love, peace, wholeness, healing, is not something we must earn or achieve, but something we must remember we already are. The spiritual journey is not about becoming good enough to deserve love. It is about recognizing that goodness is the very substance from which consciousness is made, the fundamental nature of awareness itself. When the Buddha spoke of enlightenment, he used a phrase that translates as nothing attained, not because enlightenment is empty or meaningless, but because it is the recognition of what was never absent, only temporarily obscured by the clouds, of conditioning, trauma, and the learned habit of looking for ourselves everywhere except where we actually are. You cannot attain your own nature any more than water can become wet or fire can become hot. You can only recognize what has been true all along. Feel now, as your body rests and your breathing deepens, how naturally goodness arises when you stop trying to manufacture it. Notice how kindness flows spontaneously when you cease the exhausting effort of protecting yourself from your own tenderness. Observe how peace spreads through your being like warm honey when you finally allow yourself to stop fighting the war against your own experience. This is not something you are creating. It is something you are uncovering, like an archaeologist brushing sand away from an ancient treasure that has been waiting patiently for centuries to see light again. The ocean of original goodness is not naive or sentimental. It has room for everything: your anger, your fear, your confusion, your deepest shadows. But it holds all of these experiences the way the sky holds clouds, the way silence holds sound, the way a mother holds a crying child, with infinite spaciousness, with unconditional acceptance, with a love so vast that nothing can threaten or diminish it. Your darkness does not contaminate this goodness any more than night contaminates the sky dot in the deepest teachings of Dzogchen, the great perfection tradition of Tibetan Buddhism. Practitioners learn to rest in what is called Rigpa, pure awareness itself, unstained by the content of experience. This awareness is already perfect, already awake, already free. It requires no improvement, no healing, no transformation. The healing happens when you stop trying to fix this awareness and simply learn to rest in it, to trust it, to recognize it as your most intimate and eternal identity. The Christian mystic Meister Eckhart pointed to this same ocean when he wrote, "God's ground and the soul's ground are one ground. Not similar, not connected, but literally the same ground, the same essential nature, the same fundamental goodness, the same inexhaustible source of love, appearing as both the seeker and the sought, both the wounded one and the healing presence, both the question and the answer that dissolves all questions in its embrace dot as you float now in this ocean of original goodness." You might notice that your relationship to your own pain begins to transform. The hurt is still there, but it no longer defines you. The trauma still carries its lessons, but it no longer owns you. The fear still arises, but it no longer convinces you that you are essentially flawed or fundamentally unsafe. You begin to understand that you are like the ocean itself, capable of containing storms without being destroyed by them, able to touch every shore without being limited by any coastline. This recognition brings with it a profound relaxation, not just of the body, but of the very effort to become someone other than who you are. The spiritual path, which may have felt like climbing an endless mountain, reveals itself to have been a process of sinking deeper and deeper into the truth that was never anywhere but here, never anything but now, never anyone but the awareness. That has been reading these words, listening to these teachings, breathing these breaths with perfect, effortless presence. The Sufi poet Hafez captured this mystery when he wrote, "I wish I could show you, when you are lonely or in darkness, the astonishing light of your own being. This light is not something you must kindle, it is already burning. This goodness is not something you must cultivate, it is already flourishing. This healing presence is not something you must invoke, it is already here, already whole, already offering itself as the very foundation of your existence, in the ocean of original goodness." Healing is revealed to be not a process of repairing something broken, but a process of remembering something forgotten. You are not a damaged person, slowly being fixed. You are a perfect expression of consciousness temporarily convinced of its own imperfection. You are not earning your way back to wholeness. You are recognizing the wholeness that was never actually lost, only covered over by layers of learned unworthiness. The waves of experience continue to rise and fall, moments of joy and moments of sorrow, times of clarity and times of confusion. But now you know yourself as the ocean that is equally present in every wave, equally undisturbed, whether the surface is calm or stormy. You are the constant in the midst of all change, the peace in the heart of all activity, the love that remains. When all reasons for love have been forgotten, this is the ultimate healing, not the absence of pain, but the recognition that you are larger than pain, not the elimination of problems, but the understanding that you are deeper than problems, not the achievement of perfection, but the remembrance that you are already the perfection you have been seeking, temporarily playing at being imperfect. For the sheer joy of remembering what you truly are, in the softest moments before dawn touches the horizon with fingers of pearl and gold, when the night has shared all its secrets and your heart has drunk deeply from the well of ancient wisdom, we find ourselves completing this sacred circle of understanding, this gentle pilgrimage through the landscape of self-healing that has carried us from seeking to finding, from longing to recognizing, from brokenness to the remembrance of our unbreakable wholeness. As you rest now in the deep cradle of this, Final hour, your breathing slow and natural as ocean tides, your body soft and yielding as morning mist. Allow yourself to feel the profound shift that has occurred in the secret chambers of your being. You began this night believing you needed someone else to heal you, someone wiser or more capable or more enlightened than yourself. But you have discovered, in the gentle laboratory of your own experience, that the healer you were seeking has been walking in your footsteps all along, breathing your breath, beating in your heart, waiting patiently for the moment when you would finally turn inward and recognize the face of love looking back at you from the mirror of your own awareness. The Buddha, in his infinite compassion, spent 45 years teaching after his great awakening, sharing countless methods and techniques for ending suffering. But in his final moments, his last words were not about technique or method. They were simply this: be a lamp unto yourself. Work out your salvation with diligence. He was reminding us, with his very last breath, that the light we seek shines from within our own being, that the salvation we long for is the work of our own awakening, that the healing we need flows from the inexhaustible spring of our own Buddha nature. Tonight, you have remembered this truth not as philosophy, but as lived experience. You have felt what it means to be your own refuge, your own sanctuary, your own source of peace in a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain. This is not selfishness, it is self-realization. This is not isolation, it is integration. This is not withdrawal from the world, but preparation to meet the world from a place of fullness rather than emptiness, from a space of overflow rather than need. The teachings we have shared tonight, the wisdom of impermanence, the practice of self-compassion, the recognition of your original goodness, these are not concepts to be understood intellectually, but seeds to be planted in the fertile soil of your daily life. Each morning when you wake, each evening when you rest, each moment when pain arises or joy blossoms, you now have a different relationship to your experience. You know yourself as the sky in which all weather patterns appear and disappear, the ocean in which all waves rise and fall, the silence in which all sounds emerge and dissolve thought as you prepare to enter the realm of dreams, where the boundaries of logic soften and the soul speaks in symbols and metaphors. Carry with you this gentle understanding. You are not alone in your journey of healing, because you are never actually separate from the source of all healing. Every breath connects you to the same life force that moves through every living being. Every heartbeat attunes you to the cosmic rhythm that pulses through galaxies and atoms alike. Every moment of awareness links you to the infinite consciousness that dreams all dreams and awakens from all sleep. The path of healing yourself without depending on others is not a path of isolation, but a path of true connection to the deepest truth of what you are, which is also the deepest truth of what everything is. When you heal from this place of recognized wholeness, your very presence becomes healing for others without effort or intention. You become like a tuning fork that has remembered its true frequency, automatically calling other hearts back to their own natural harmony. In traditions around the world, the hours before dawn are considered the most sacred for spiritual practice, because the veil between dimensions is thinnest, because the mind is naturally more quiet, because the soul remembers more easily its essential nature when not distracted by the busyness of waking life. You have chosen to spend these precious hours not in entertainment or distraction, but in the most important work possible, coming home to yourself, making peace with your own existence, learning to love the one person you will spend every moment of your life with you. The great Vietnamese Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh, taught that peace is not something we achieve, but something we are. Not something we attain, but something we remember. As sleep begins to call to you with its gentle summons, as your eyelids grow heavy with the sweet weight of natural tiredness, let yourself settle into this peace that you are. Not the peace of having solved all problems, but the peace of recognizing that you are larger than any problem, deeper than any confusion, more resilient than any wound. Feel now how naturally your body knows to heal itself when you stop interfering with its wisdom. Feel how automatically your mind grows quiet when you stop demanding that it produce solutions to unsolvable puzzles. Feel how effortlessly your heart opens when you cease protecting it from its own tenderness. This is the healing you have been seeking, not traumatic or exotic, but natural as rainfall, gentle as starlight, inevitable as the turning of seasons. In the patient cycle of becoming. Thank you, dear friend, for sharing this quiet path with me tonight. Thank you for your willingness to look within, to sit with uncertainty, to trust the process of your own unfolding, even when you cannot see where it leads. Thank you for being brave enough to heal yourself, wise enough to seek wisdom in solitude, and compassionate enough to offer yourself the same kindness you would give to any beloved friend. As you surrender now to the loving arms of sleep, may you dream of gardens where every flower knows its own beauty, of oceans where every wave remembers its true nature, of mountains that stand in perfect peace, regardless of whether storms or sunshine grace their peaks. May your dreams be woven from the golden threads of understanding you have gathered tonight. And may you wake tomorrow knowing yourself a little more clearly, loving yourself a little more completely, trusting yourself a little more deeply, wherever you rest your head tonight, in a small apartment in a busy city, in a quiet house in the countryside, in a place of temporary shelter, or a home you have loved for years. May peace find you there. May the Dharma light your dreams with gentle wisdom. May the Buddha nature, that is your true face, smile upon your sleeping form with infinite tenderness. And may you always remember, in both your waking and sleeping hours, that you carry within yourself everything you need for healing, everything necessary for peace, everything required for love. You are not a broken thing waiting to be fixed by some future insight or perfect relationship. You are a perfect thing temporarily disguised as imperfection, a whole thing playing at being fragmented, a healed thing pretending to need healing. Until the moment when the game is recognized as play and the player is recognized as the self that was never actually lost. Good night, beautiful soul. Sleep well in the arms of your own infinite nature. Rest deeply in the embrace of the love that you are. And be well, dear friend. Be well in every cell, every breath, every dream, every dawn that awaits your gentle awakening. The lamp that lights your way forward burns not with borrowed flame, but with the eternal fire of your own awakened heart. Trust it. Follow it. It knows the way home.